I'm white supremacist exists somewhere in America. I've just never met him. Never seen one. Never met one in my life, right? Maybe I'll meet a unicorn sooner. And maybe those exist too.
Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, that comment at a campaign event last week in Iowa. Yesterday on Fox News, he was pressed on his foreign policy positions.
I would freeze the current lines of control. I would further make a hard commitment that NATO will not admit Ukraine to NATO. That's enough to get Putin to do the deal. But I will require something even greater in return, Jesse. Russia has to exit its military alliance with China. Right now, we're pushing Russia further into China's hands. The Russia-China military alliance is the single greatest threat that the United States faces today.
President Ramaswamy flies to Moscow. He sits down across the table from Vlad, and he says, you're going to give up your alliance with China, and Vlad's going to say, okay.
He's going to say, okay, because I'm going to say we'll reopen our economic relations with Russia.
Okay.
And further, we'll end the Ukraine war and also make sure that NATO never admits Ukraine.
Even though the economic relations with China is much more valuable to Russia?
The reason it's more valuable is because we've wrongfully cut off Russia from the West by bombing the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines and also sanctioning Russia. So if we can reopen the Western economic relations with Russia, Russia has less of a reason to be in partnership with China.
Whew, there is a lot in there. He's going to be the one to flip Vladimir Putin. Joining us now, special correspondent at Vanity Fair, host of the Fast Politics podcast, Molly Jong-Fast. She's out with a new piece titled From Trump to Vivek, the GOP is primed for another charismatic phony. So, Molly, good morning. Good to see you, as always. He was on that debate stage last week. People said, well, it was his night because he commanded so much of the attention. But if you stop and listen to what he was saying, he was talking about completely cutting off Ukraine from aid. Climate change is a hoax. I'm going to issue a preemptive pardon to Donald Trump. He's questioned whether we should continue to support Israel, which has drawn the ire of a lot of Republicans. Even Sean Hannity had it out with him on that issue. It's important to listen not just to how he's saying things, but what he's saying.
I mean, he is really cut from the same cloth as Donald Trump, though he did not like Donald Trump in his book, right? And then now loves him. But luckily it was hidden in a book, so nobody's seen it. I would say in his book, I would say that it's an interest. You know, this guy is really he's all style and no substance, which is very Trumpy, right? He is a charismatic guy. And what I think that a lot of people were responding to during that debate was his style, right? His charisma, his ability to speak fast and sound like he knows what he's talking about. But it's very clear that there's a lot of stuff that he's either, you know, flopping on or just blatantly lying about.
I mean, he's effectively in many ways doing an impersonation of Donald Trump. And there's a sense that he is a smart guy and that this is all cynical and that he knows better on a lot of it. And so we might complain about what he said at the debate, but to the base, he's pushing all the right buttons.
Well, I think what's scary is this base is really has been tipped into unreality by Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, I think it's really important to think about Donald Trump as a sort of new kind of politician. We are used to politicians who lie. We are used to politicians who embellish. But what Donald Trump did was he said things that were so blatantly untrue that he tipped his people into unreality. For example, he said things like, I found this thing he said in 2020 at a speech where he said, you know, we're going to have the best health care replacement for Obamacare. In fact, we already have it, right? It's already starting. And that's not true, and that was never true. But he sort of lied in such a blatant way that he kind of took the base a little bit further into unreality.
And when Jesse Waters is questioning your foreign policy plans, you know you've perhaps gone a little far. But I thought it was really striking at that debate how it was very clear how Ramaswamy raised the ire of the rest of the Republicans on stage. They were clearly annoyed by him, and that's putting it mildly. But they are the ones who seemingly, to your point, are the ones out of step. They're the ones who only are polling in the single digits. So they may be rejecting him because he's questioning Republican orthodoxy, like strong foreign policy, but yet that's not where the base is at all.
Right. And I also think it's important to realize this has nothing to do with policy. This base is not about policy, right? If it were about policy, DeSantis would be the heir to Trump, right? Because he ran on policy, on Trumpy policies, but even more right wing. This base cares about style, cares about charisma, cares about, you know, someone who's going to tell them the things they like. And you see, I mean, in that Jesse Waters clip, which is amazing because you have a candidate gotten by Jesse Waters, right? Like, think about that for a minute. But you see that he works in things that are... There's no evidence that America bombed the Nord Stream pipeline. I mean, that's a crazy conspiracy theory. And he just works it in like it's some, normal stuff.
Is there a larger issue here, though, more so than just this annoying creep, Vivek? Isn't the larger issue really what has happened to our politics? He was on a stage with 7 other people, some of them pretenders, running for the presidency.
Yeah.
We pay enormous amounts of attention to this guy. There's something wrong with this guy. I mean, he's got a method, but the method is madness. Yet we cover him as if it's legitimate.
Well, I think Donald Trump primed us for this, right? We had a reality television.
Donald Trump had one thing, only one thing that Vivek does not have. Donald Trump was funny.
Right.
This guy's not funny.
But he's charismatic. I mean, I agree. I think part of what's working for Vivek is that it is the slow season of August, and he's come about at a time when that debate was really about people running for vice president. I think there was some good things where it seemed like Nikki Haley was a little bit sane, and any sanity in that party should be rewarded because it's so unusual. But I think he came in a big splash, and he was able to suck up some of the media. I don't see him as like a long-term, at least I hope I don't see him as a long-term political figure.
Molly, Caddy's got one for you. Caddy?
Yeah, Molly, picking up on that, I mean, look, is this just the kind of 10 minutes of fame that Vivek Ramaswamy is having? And he's having it by kind of saying outlandish things that are not true, contradicting himself. I mean, saying one thing one day and then, saying something else a few days later, like suddenly saying he's not woke or something. But what interests me is the degree to which Fox has decided that they are going to turn on Ramaswamy. I mean, from Sean Hannity to Fox and Friends in the morning to Jesse Waters, one Fox host after another, one Fox contributor basically calling him crazy and saying he's about to surrender. And it's just, I just wonder, Fox's relationship with Ramaswamy is interesting, and why have they decided to do this?
I mean, Fox is such a complicated and strange place, and right now they're going through such a weird time, right? They had this Dominion suit, they settled it, there are other suits, producer suits. I mean, and then remember, we have this rapprochement with Rupert Murdoch and Donald Trump. So it's hard to know if there's, and I always wonder with Fox, is there a real, larger strategy, or are these, people just irritated with him, with Ramaswamy? And that, I think it's impossible to know.
He's also trafficked in 9/11 conspiracy theories, conspiracies around January 6th. It's a really ugly laundry list of places he's gone. So what is his objective? What's the end game here? It's unlikely that he's going to win this race unless there's some event around Donald Trump that keeps him from getting the nomination. Donald Trump, by the way, has lavished praise on Vivek Ramaswamy. I really like the guy. He said to Glenn Beck, he's very intelligent. He's great up there because he sounds like Trump. So what is Vivek's endgame in this primary?
Well, again, I mean, who knows what's in his head? My sense is he would like to be vice president. That seems unlikely. It's hard for me to imagine Donald Trump sharing the attention with someone like that, especially because Vivek seems like someone who does not play well with others from the way he was on that debate stage. So I don't think he'll be the vice president. But again, these people, fame is a currency for them. So, it's a podcast, it's a Fox News deal, it's a, it's an OAN show.
It's relevance to a certain audience. By the way, Glenn Beck asked Donald Trump the other day, would Vivek be a good VP? He said he's a very, very, very intelligent person, Trump said. He's got good energy, I tell you. I think he'd be very good. Donald Trump on Vivek Ramaswamy. Special correspondent, Vanity Fair, host of the Fast Politics podcast, our good friend Molly Jong-Fast. Molly, thanks so much. Good to see you.